Welcome to Torch Talks. My name is Jakira C. Patterson, and I'm a junior education studies major from the beautiful city of Houma, Louisiana.
And my name is Chris Moultrie, a graduating senior education studies major, political science minor from Mobile, Alabama.
This is the first official podcast for the Morehouse Center for Excellence in Education. And today, class is in session. Class is in session.
Let's get to it.
So, Chris, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I'm happy about this podcast, us lunching, getting our centers, goals, objectives, just getting our name out there. Because Morehouse was founded for Black men to become preachers and teachers, emphasis on the teachers, and we doing the work. We fulfilling the dreams of our ancestors. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I'm glad to be here, especially on this podcast where we're able to talk about the much needed conversations within the education curriculum, the education community, education as a whole, especially for us as Black men, for Black students. So today, let's kick off our semester with Torch Talks. Let's knock the first thing off the syllabus. Why do we need Black educators?
That's a good question. I think the first reason we need Black educators is because we have Black students in classrooms. And though that may seem very obvious or like the common thing that people would just think that everybody knows, it's not. When you are in a society where you have a lot of low-income communities with a lot of lower-income schools, Title I schools, you have a lot of white teachers, not enough Black teachers for those Black and brown students. And it's not just about Black educators, but we need more educators of color, but specifically Black educators to help our Black students for representation reasons, for reasons that we just share culture. We know each other. We feel more comfortable with each other. So why do you think, because I know you're from Louisiana,
Yeah.
I'm from Alabama, so we both from the South.
Yes.
Why do you think we need Black educators, especially coming from places like where we come from?
So to jump from something that you said, a lot of my schools, we had a higher representation of Black students, but a low representation of Black teachers. And that was something, it was like, I watched so many of my friends, we coming from the hood and we going to school, but it's a lot of white people and it's a lot of white teachers. So it's like, a lot of different things happen because we don't see us being represented.
Right.
I see a lot of my white friends, they're excited to become teachers. They're excited to become this next generation of whatever, of what they see their parents doing. We didn't have a lot of these examples of success. My school didn't bring in Black teachers or Black guests to come speak to us for assembly. So it was like, success looked white. And we didn't see it. The only way we saw success looked white. And we didn't see a lot of it. So it's like the only way we saw success was sports, and that's what we were good at school, and entertainment. So a lot of us by default became class clown. We was looking for a safe space. We was looking for a place to learn how to be us. But with the big cultural divide, we're not learning about us. We're not seeing people that look like us. We're not feeling what it looks like to be a successful Black man outside of what the media propagates.
I feel like even like what you just said is so important because I remember a conversation that we had in one of our classes with Dr. Outler. He was saying, how can we be teaching curriculum and we never see ourselves in it?
Right.
But the non-Black students, whether they Asian or white, even the Hispanics sometimes get way more representation than the Black students do. Like, I went to a high school that we did not celebrate Black History Month at all. There was no MLK Day. There was no, we gonna have a Black History Memorial, like nothing. It was nothing. Like my school still had the Confederate flag still waving above the school, and they wanted us to like pledge allegiance to a flag. And I'm like, girl, I'm not doing that. But I realized in my high school there were no Black teachers. Wow. Like there were none. So when it came to being the first Black SGA president or the first Black homecoming queen, like my friend did, or like the first Black whatever at my school, it was very much, well, who do we turn to for like help? Because there's nobody here for us to go to. Yeah, we have these positions. Yeah, we have these big dreams. But even when it came to like counselors, like my counselor asked me, do you really want to go to Morehouse?
Wow.
And I'm like, why wouldn't I go? It's a school literally just for me.
For me.
So why wouldn't I go? And I think what you touched on a lot was when you don't have that representation in those schools, because educators are not just teachers in front of a chalkboard or a dry erase board or a smart board, but they are your janitors.
Right.
But the black people in your class can't only be the janitors.
Right.
The educators are the cafeteria staff, but those can't be the only black people in the school. So when you don't have any black teachers, any black counselors, you kind of just, you alone. You alone.
Yeah. And I could definitely say something about that. Like, so in high school, I had we had two black guidance counselors, but I stuck closely to this one, Miss Tammy Williams. You ever watch this? Just know.
Shout out to Miss Tammy Williams.
Yeah, shout out to Miss Tammy Williams. Just know she definitely impacted my life in ways that are unimaginable because I had a lot of white teachers, but sometimes when the black students, we just needed a place to let steam off. Especially, I grew up in the South when Trump was in office.
My God.
So we got Make America Great Again. We got people telling us what we need to do as black people, how we need to conform to the white society. And we would just go in her office and just let off steam. And it's crazy because that's also how I got introduced to Morehouse. In her office, going to sit in the guidance office, but it was white counselors, it was white teachers, it was even white administration that didn't like that we would go in there, but they didn't understand what we were doing. They didn't understand that was our safe space. And although people tried to just put her, like I had a teacher who tried to just put her in that guidance counselor category, she was more of an educator to me than a lot of people. You know, my classroom teachers was like, yeah, I learned science, I learned math, I learned social studies. I was going to learn that anyway because that's what I had to do to get out of there. You feel me? But what it took to actually be able to learn how to be in that environment and learn is something that I got from her. Something that she was able to like, hey, I know it's hard. I know it's crazy. I know what's going on. But this is what we got to do to become this version of ourselves. So something that I want to stem off of, growing up in that type of society, that environment, how was that transition to Morehouse, to learning to ask for help, learning to be around other black people, learning to respond and accept black representation? How was that?
Honestly, Morehouse, the transition was, I'm not going to say it was difficult, but it felt weird. I kind of felt like I was having a culture shock moment, even though this is my culture.
No, really.
Even though, like, I didn't grow up in the suburbs. I didn't grow up in the, like, most fancy house. I used to call it hood adjacent. My family still laughs about that, but we definitely grew up in the hood. But in my mind, it was hood adjacent because I always wanted better. Not saying that the hood wasn't good enough, but that's what I always said. So coming to Morehouse, like, it was like, there are really black people everywhere. And I was used to going from being around black people to 8 hours a day, I was around white people.
Right.
So Chris back then changed the way he spoke. So it went from, hey, my name is Chris. Oh, hello, nice to meet you. My name is Christopher. Like, and now it wasn't that funny, but it was still like a very much code switch narrative. It was still, I felt uncomfortable being black in these spaces, even being when I went to football games, to basketball games, and it was all these white moms coming in with their shades on their head. They drive these, nice Range Rovers and Mercedes, or the dads come in with their khakis and they blue blazer, and then so everybody's sitting like, they all comfortable.
Right.
But it's me. I'm like, okay, do I speak? Do I not speak? I'm a black man. I don't want to say something.
It's
they
the
get
way
offended.
I speak gonna be okay.
It's the way I speak gonna be okay. But one thing I really did find to be a common theme amongst black people is family.
Right.
Even at my high school, there was family there. And I think there's a book. It might be, or it might just be an article titled, Why Do Black People All Sit on the Same Side of the Cafeteria? That was literally my high school. Like my high school, it was around the same size as Morehouse, around 2,300 some students. But there were like 400 black people. And each lunch wave, you had your group of black people who sat in the back left-hand corner. We didn't have no trouble. Like, we just in our own world. And I remember one day, like, I was like, I'm just ready to leave this. I'm ready to be able to sit at any table and with any person. When I came to Morehouse, that's what I had. Come in, the professors are sitting here, they shared experiences. So coming here really allowed me to grow into myself. But I can't say that I would have this if I would have went to a PWI, because my black educators here, granted, is in college, so who can say that I wouldn't have this?
Right.
But my black educators here allowed me to be me, and they allowed me to grow into who I am and who I was destined to be. It was no pressure of, oh baby, you gotta change how you talk with this, or your grammar not all. Now, granted, we know how black people are,
yeah.
Especially the ones who really care about this. They gon' you might should say this differently, or you might should do this. But that's the purpose of black educators. Right. They're to guide us and help show us the light that's at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
You don't have to always be lonely, but you don't have to always be alone. But let me tell y'all the dynamic of the show, right? Jakira is the host, but I'm the executive producer, so I'm gonna reserve the right to ask questions. Okay, Jakira, what do you think about the statistics that say there are 7% of black people, men and women altogether, who serve? Wrong statistic. I'm sorry. There are 7% of black women who are black educators. There are 2% men making up the education field that are black. What do you think about that? How can we combat that? Or can we combat that? Do we even desire to be in a classroom?
Yeah, I feel like we have this desire to educate, but when you get into the classroom, it's like so much of what they let us learn. As someone who's aspiring to be a black male educator and seeing what the curriculum is teaching, it almost infuriates me. Like every time I see what I'm able to teach, because it's so much of American history that's related to black culture, related to black men and women we call it black history, but this is American history. And there's so much of that that's watered down. It's knocked out. It's almost making us believe like slavery was okay. Like slavery helped us.
Which it was not.
And it's like, as someone who's aspiring to be a black educator, that angers me so much on what I will be able to do. But the importance of having black educators is being able to have that experience, being able to have someone that you can look up to and say, this book may not be right, but I see me in someone where I can be better. And that's my spiel on why we need black educators. That experience, that look up to, that I can.
That was good. So I remember all my black teachers. I only had 3. My first was in first grade, Miss Ollie Wilson. My second one was in 4th grade, Mr. Carl Beard. I still keep up with both of them. And my third, he was actually my first black male teacher. He was my 8th grade teacher, Mr. King. He was also my mom's teacher. Can you remember your first black teacher, if you had one?
Yeah, so I had Miss Williams in 4th grade. Then I had Mr. Brown, my first black male teacher, in 5th grade. And I knew how to code switch. Like that. But I wrote something that we could tap into later, like, was it success or was it survival? And when I met these people, it's like I was all right with being black. I was all right with going to class, being able to talk to her like I was talking to my mama. And a lot of times I thought that, especially Mr. Brown, I thought that they were harder on me. I'm like, I'm a smart black kid. Y'all should be giving me a pass. But then it was like they knew what it was to be a black man in society. Before they knew I was smart, before they knew if I spoke well, before they knew if I dressed well, they knew I was a black man. And they saw something in me that they were able to teach me how to discipline it, how to hold it in. You can't do what everybody else do because you won't be treated the same as everybody else. So I thank God for them. Like, having those black teachers mattered, because we put teachers 8 hours out the day. That's almost longer than we would our parents throughout the day.
Way longer.
They become our parents in elementary school, middle school, and those are the people who get to teach us how to navigate life. Like, they get to do that. So it's like, as someone who's aspiring to be a black educator, that's something that I aspire to do. Like, I get to teach that black man how to become a successful black man. And I get to go home and smile about it every night.
Well, if you are interested in conversations like this all the time, I'm telling you, I'm just take my EP title and just do what I want. But we are going to have conversations like this all the time, especially about the joys of education. We have a list of guests that we are excited to be bringing.
Some superheroes.
But we also are going to be talking about the things that just make us want to say. Exactly. So, Jakari, I'm going to throw it back to you. You can wrap it up. Go ahead, get out of here.
We can go ahead and wrap it up. I'm honored to do this. I'm grateful to do this. I love this conversation. I love you, Chris.
I love you too.
We get to meet some superheroes, future superheroes in the making.
Future superheroes.
This is Torch Talk, and class is dismissed.